Welcome to Daily Tribune, our top story. Yesterday, Dr. Thiele-Eich, said to possibly be the first German woman in space, spoke to the BIMUN 2019 conference about the climate debate and about the issues she faced in the field as a woman.
So I think it's very important that especially the people who can, because they're privileged enough. I'm very privileged. I grew up very privileged. I grew up in the space community. I grew up with parents who had enough financial resources to send me to Harvard summer school and to do everything that I dreamed of being. There was always some way, maybe not immediately, but some means of allowing me to pursue my dreams. And I think especially if you are that privileged, and I face discrimination, yes, as a woman, of course. I have faced that, but still, I'm much more privileged than a lot of people in the world. And I think, especially with that privilege in mind, we need to act and be more persistent on bringing climate change to the table in all fields of life. So diversity is always very important. We know this from space studies, actually. So there's a lot of studies on how people communicate with each other, because when we think of long-term missions, such as going to Mars, which is going to take 2 years, it's very important that you know, like, what's the best team to send 2 years in a little capsule with limited resources. You don't want them eating each other because there's, or not communicating with each other anymore, because that could impact the safety of the mission. So there's actually lots of scientific studies on this that show that the more diverse a team is, the better, because that's when you have a new input of fresh ideas coming to the table and not always just doing things the same old way as in the good days. So I'm a very firm believer of that diversity is best, and that's a mix of ages, a mix of gender, a mix of race, of everything. Biggest challenge to climate action in politics, I wish I knew the answer so I could just go and fix it. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people who are, I think fear is always a big issue, and I just saw Frozen 2, so fear is not to be trusted. Yes, I got to quote that. I think fear plays a really big role, like fear of change, or fear of missing out, or fear of losing resources, or access to something, or fear of, I think, just not knowing what's coming. I think that's something that allows the human brain to just completely shut information out that's out there and that is fact, and just be like, oh, I don't have to believe it if I don't want to. And that is, from my opinion, fear, and probably also lobbying of, I'm just gonna say, like, lobbying of big oil companies that are afraid also maybe of losing out. And in Germany, it's the automobile industry that has a huge lobby in politics, as opposed to climate scientists who, we don't have a lobby really. And that is something where I see the biggest challenges, but definitely fear is not to be trusted. Usually is like challenge accepted. I really like it. I tend to challenge myself, because otherwise I have a huge, in Germany we have the word Schweinehund. So like this morning I faced the decision of sleeping or getting up and going to run. I don't have a challenge right now. I don't have a race that I signed up for, so I just slept. Had I had a race in 4 weeks where I have to train for, I would have gotten up out of bed and gone to run. So my personal mindset is the more challenge I have, the better for me, because it gets my brain thinking of, ooh, how can I tackle it? Like, what can I do? That's something that's fun for me. If it's not fun for you, which it doesn't have to be fun for everybody, I have things that are not fun for me as well. I try and go things that are not fun for me and not so easy for me, I try and look at why that is. Why is that? This is a very basic example, but I hated emptying the dishwasher. It's like I hated it. But I have 3 kids, so I have to empty that dishwasher. Even if I let my husband do it most of the time, I still have to do it. And so I just looked at why is it that I hate this? Or mowing the lawn, for example, is also something where I was like, I don't want to do it. And so just going there and reflecting on it, and maybe taking a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and just sitting down and thinking about, why am I so hindered by this, that I'm discomfortable by it? And learning something about yourself can actually be really enjoyable also. So I learned about myself what it was that bothered me about emptying the dishwasher. Now I don't even care, I just do it. I actually think it's fun now. And that's something that I also like, that you can learn something about yourself, or it's also with much more maybe professional examples in astronaut training. I have things that frustrate me there as well. But going where it hurts and just looking at that, and just mindfulness plays a big part of this, just also allowing the feeling of discomfort to be there and allowing the challenge to be there for myself, and just saying, okay, can I deal with this in some way, and just thinking on it a little bit can actually also be fun. And so that's sort of maybe a little vague, but that's sort of the gist of how I deal with challenges. Yes, that is something, the struggle of knowing about the climate catastrophe and wanting to do everything you can, at the same time on an individual level failing every day because you like avocado or you like beef and you know you shouldn't like it. That is something where I really looked a lot at the psychology of it. And I think personally it's better if 1,000 people do something than if one person does everything and the 999 people do nothing. I think it's very important that 1,000 of us are talking about it, are changing what they can in their life, talking about it with their friends, seeing if maybe it can also be fun to find new vegetarian recipes, for example. For us, it was meat recipes were the default in our household. So we just challenged ourselves, once a month, let's find a new vegetarian recipe that we can cook. And slowly now, we eat meat so little that it was just like a natural process. It didn't hurt. It's fun. You learn new recipes. You have cooking nights with friends, which we didn't have before. And just doing that is, to me, it's very important that nobody feels that this is all on them. It's not on you. You're allowed to sometimes make choices that in the current system, you just have to also make. Or you can still make them. For example, something that I'm also ashamed of this while I'm saying it, but I share it all the time because I think it's so important. In Germany, we don't have a speed limit on the Autobahn. So you're allowed to go as fast as you want. I have 3 kids. If they're asleep and I'm coming back late from the funeral of my grandmother, and I'm allowed to speed and go 170, I'm going to go 170. I know it's better to drive 130 or 100. I know it's better to go slower. I know it's better because the microplastic doesn't rub off as much from my wheels. I know it's better for the climate. I know I'm emitting more fuel. I'm going to do it until you forbid me to do it, because I want my kids to be home as fast as possible as they can be today. If next week the government issues a speed limit, I'm very happy, and I'm pro speed limit, but on an individual level, as long as the system allows it, I'm not always going to adhere to what I know is best as a climate scientist. And that is something that I've learned to be okay with at times. I still try and change as much as I can, but I can't change everything all the time. So I talk with my kids about the fact that I go to the strike, and our babysitter actually goes to strike with me, because we found it's better if you're accountable. So if it's raining outside and you're like, oh, should I really ride my bike into Bonn and be all wet and then walk around in the streets for 3 hours? It's better if you're already signed up with somebody to do it. So we go together, and my kids really like our babysitter. I hope they also like me, but they found out from her that we go and do this. They saw pictures of me doing it. I didn't want to say, oh, you can miss school for this, and because I didn't want to put my political opinions on them. My daughter actually by herself found out about Friday for Future and said, Mom, I want to go. When is the next time that it's happening? And then I actually said, well, you know what? We can go after school, right? We can go from 1 to 5 p.m. because it was a big strike. So it's going to be in the afternoon as well. And she said, no, I want to miss I want to be there in the beginning. I want to be there with you when you go. And so we compromised on it, and I would have taken her out of school for the whole day, but I figured it's good for her to also do this by herself. So she went to the teacher and said, I want to go climate strike with my friend. They were the only two in the whole school who went. And then the teacher said, okay, well, as a, to compensate that you're not here, you're going to give a talk on Monday about what you did, and you're going to show us your signs, and you're going to tell us about the day and about why you did this. Both of them hate oral presentations, so I'm not sure, but they said okay, and then I took them, and of course now they're coming also. Are they coming this Friday? I hope so. So now they're also very active in this and talking to their friends about it, and now the whole class wants to go, and they're doing a lot of climate activities, and so it's important to me. My kids are still 9 and 6. I don't want to put the whole weight of climate change on their backs. I think it's my job as a parent to go. And so I'm more focusing on the other parents and getting them to go. A lot of moms are home on Fridays in my friend circle, so I get them to go and kind of bribe them with cookies or something. I do that because I don't want my 9-year-old to be awake at night for that as well. It's not her fault, so.